Zainab had always believed in love, but her journey through the maze of relationships had left her heart bruised and her hope waning. Friends and family often told her that the right man would come along when she least expected it, but Zainab had grown impatient. In a moment of desperation, she decided to try online dating, a suggestion that had been floated by her friends more times than she could count. Signing up was easy, and soon Zainab's profile was live. Within days, she was inundated with messages from handsome men from all corners of the world. The vibrant colors of their profile pictures and the carefully crafted messages intrigued her, yet she remained cautious. Though flattered, Zainab couldn't help but hope for someone from her own country, someone who understood her culture and values. Then she received a message from Malik, a strikingly handsome Ghanaian man. His profile revealed that he was a pilot, born and raised in the United States. Intrigued by his background, Zainab decided to reply. Their conversation flowed effortlessly, and she was delighted to discover they had so much in common. They both loved adventure, shared a passion for culinary arts, especially experimenting with new recipes, and had a deep appreciation for family values. Their chats often stretched into the early hours, filled with laughter and shared dreams. As their connection grew stronger, Malik mentioned he would be flying to Nigeria soon and suggested they meet. Nervous yet excited, Zainab agreed. When the day finally arrived, Zainab felt a mix of anticipation and nerves. But the moment she saw Malik at the airport, her anxiety melted away. He stood tall, exuding confidence, his pilot uniform adding to his charm. It was love at first sight. His warm smile and confident demeanor reassured her that this was the beginning of something special. Their first meeting was brief but magical. Malik took Zainab to a fine dining restaurant where they shared a candlelit dinner, surrounded by the soft glow of chandeliers and the soothing hum of classical music. The delicate scent of roses filled the air as he surprised her with expensive gifts, a delicate gold necklace and a bouquet of her favorite flowers, white lilies. They spent a lovely evening together talking about their dreams and aspirations, laughing like old friends. As the evening drew to a close, Malik accompanied Zainab back to her apartment. The connection they felt was undeniable, and they decided to spend the night together. It was a night filled with tenderness and passion, sealing the bond that had already begun to form between them. The next day, Malik had to leave for work. As a pilot, his job demanded frequent travel, but they promised to keep in touch. True to their word, they called, texted, and video chatted every day, their bond growing stronger despite the distance. Zainab felt happier than she had in years, cherishing every moment they spent together, even if it was virtual. She found herself eagerly awaiting his calls, her heart skipping a beat whenever she saw his name flash on her screen. 3 months into their relationship, Zainab began feeling unwell. After visiting her doctor, she received unexpected news. She was pregnant. A whirlwind of emotions hit her: joy, fear, confusion. She was scared to tell Malik, fearing he might think she had gotten pregnant on purpose to trap him into being with her. Zainab considered all possible reactions, but decided she had to tell him the truth. One evening, with her heart pounding, Zainab video called Malik. She could see the excitement in his eyes, but she felt a lump in her throat. She took a deep breath and told him about the pregnancy. She even suggested an abortion, afraid that he might not want the baby. To her surprise, Malik's face lit up with joy. He was thrilled at the news and wanted to keep the baby. Zainab's fears began to dissipate, but she was firm about one thing. She wasn't going to settle for just being a baby mama. She wanted a family, a stable home for her child. Seeing the determination in her eyes, Malik knew what he had to do. He didn't hesitate. Zainab, he said, taking a deep breath, I love you more than anything. Let's not just be parents. Let's not just be parents. Let's be a family. Will you marry me? Tears filled Zainab's eyes as she nodded, unable to speak. Malik's proposal was everything she had dreamed of. Zainab shared the joyous news with her family and friends, who were thrilled for her. Their excitement was palpable, and everyone eagerly awaited the wedding. As Zainab and Malik began planning for their big day, they encountered their first major difference in vision. Malik insisted on a small, intimate, and very elaborate wedding with just a few close friends and family, valuing quality over quantity. This was contrary to Zainab's lifelong dream of a grand wedding surrounded by hundreds of guests celebrating in a lavish setting. Zainab's family, who had money and were more than willing to sponsor a lavish wedding and party, also leaned towards the idea of a big celebration. However, Malik remained steadfast in his desire for a smaller ceremony. He believed in the intimacy and significance of a wedding shared with only those closest to them. After many discussions and considerations, Zainab decided to respect Malik's wishes, recognizing the importance of compromise in their relationship. The wedding, though small, was nothing short of magical. With only a handful of friends and family present, the atmosphere was filled with love and warmth. Every detail was meticulously planned, and the day was perfect in its simplicity and elegance. Zainab wore a stunning lace, embroidered dress that made her feel like a queen, and Malik looked dashing in his tailored navy blue suit. Their vows were heartfelt, and there wasn't a dry eye in the room. Soon after the wedding, Zainab made the significant move to the United States to join her husband. The transition was smooth, thanks to Malik's unwavering support and the love they shared. Zainab quickly adapted to her new life, and a few months later, she gave birth to a beautiful baby girl. The arrival of their daughter brought an overwhelming sense of happiness and completion to their lives. Holding her baby for the first time, Zainab felt a deep sense of contentment and gratitude for the journey that had led her to this moment. However, 2 years later, trouble started brewing in paradise. Malik's job as a pilot kept him away from home more often than not, and his frequent absences strained their marriage. His constant excuses about work left Zainab feeling lonely and neglected, craving the companionship and intimacy that had once defined their relationship. One weekend, overwhelmed by loneliness and the lack of physical affection, Zainab decided she needed a break. She hired a nanny to look after her daughter and ventured to a nearby bar to unwind. The dim lights and soft jazz music set a relaxing ambience. She intended to have a few drinks and enjoy some dancing, hoping to shake off the urge for intimacy. Unfortunately, Zainab ended up having too many drinks. In her drunken state, she followed a man home and they had sex. The next morning, she woke up in a stranger's bed, her heart racing as she realized what had happened. Zainab quickly gathered her things, except for her bag, and dashed home, worried sick about her child. Hours later, Her phone rang. The kind stranger had found her contact details in her bag and called to return it. Embarrassed, Zainab reluctantly accepted his offer to drop it off at her place. When he arrived, she saw him clearly in the light of day. He was undeniably handsome, his neatly trimmed beard adding to his charm. But the situation felt awkward, and they both exchanged a few polite words before parting ways. Days turned into weeks, and the incident weighed heavily on Zainab's mind. She felt guilty and conflicted, unsure of how to address the growing distance between her and Malik. Their conversations became strained, and she struggled with the secret of her infidelity. One evening, unable to bear the guilt any longer, Zainab decided to talk to Malik. She needed to express her feelings about his constant absence and the impact it had on their marriage. As they sat down for a rare dinner together, the warm candlelight flickering between them, Zainab took a deep breath and started. Malik, we need to talk. Malik looked at her, sensing the seriousness in her tone. What's wrong, babe? She hesitated, then continued. I feel like we're drifting apart. You're always away, and I feel so alone. I need you here with us. Malik sighed, rubbing his temples. I know, babe. My job is demanding, but I'm doing this for us, for our future. I understand, she replied, her voice trembling. But we can't go on like this. We need to find a balance. Our marriage is suffering, and it's not just me. Our daughter needs you too. Malik's eyes softened, and he reached for her hand across the table. You're right. I'll talk to my superiors and see if I can get a more stable schedule. I don't want to lose you, Z. Relieved by his words, Zainab felt a glimmer of hope. They agreed to work on their relationship, promising to make more time for each other and their daughter. Zainab knew it would take time and effort, but she was willing to try. She decided not to tell Malik about her indiscretion, hoping to leave that mistake in the past and focus on rebuilding their bond. Despite her efforts to reconnect with Malik and salvage their marriage, he remained distant, his late-night phone calls growing shorter, his texts less frequent. His absence left her feeling neglected and alone. It was during one of those lonely nights that she found herself scrolling through her phone and coming across the number of the stranger she had been with that first night. In a moment of weakness and longing for companionship, she dialed his number. To her surprise, he picked up almost immediately, his voice warm and welcoming. I've been waiting for you to call, stranger, he said teasingly, which made Zainab smile despite herself. They started talking, reminiscing about their encounters and eventually planning to meet up for another drink. Their meeting quickly escalated, leading to them having sex again, this time in the restroom of the bar, where the music thumped in the background, drowning out the noise of their illicit rendezvous. What started as a one-night stand had now become a series of clandestine encounters at various spots around town, cheap motels, quiet cafes, and even the backseat of his car on secluded streets. Zainab found herself drawn to Ado's charisma and the escape he provided from her troubled marriage. His laughter, his touch, his whispered reassurances made her forget, even if only temporarily, the loneliness gnawing at her heart. As time passed, Zainab realized with a sinking feeling that she was pregnant again. This time, however, the baby wasn't Malik's. It was Ado's. She knew she had to tell him, so she asked to meet up. Adu invited her over to his place, where they had been meeting sporadically to keep their affair secret from their respective lives. When Zainab arrived, she wasn't her usual cheerful self, and Adu attempted to cheer her up. But her mind was elsewhere. As Ado went to fetch drinks from his fridge, she glanced around the room and noticed several pictures on the wall. Among them, she spotted a wedding photo, a familiar face smiling beside Ado. It was Malik, her husband, dressed in his pilot uniform with another woman by his side. Confusion and shock gripped Zainab as she pointed at the photo. "Who is this?" she asked, her voice trembling. Ado turned around slowly, his expression unreadable for a moment. "That's my baby brother, Malik," he finally said, his voice tinged with bitterness. "He's a decorated pilot, married to an Australian woman. They have 3 children together." Zainab's heart sank. The man she had been having an affair with and was pregnant with his child was Malik's brother. Zainab's world shattered as the truth unfolded before her. Sobbing uncontrollably, she struggled to process the devastating revelation. Adu, equally bewildered and confused, listened as Zainab poured out her heart and told Adu the truth about her marriage to Malik. As Zainab continued to cry, Adu's mind raced with the disbelief of what he had just learned. He hadn't attended Malik's wedding to Zainab because of the deep rift caused by Malik's adulterous betrayal with Adu's own wife, leading to their divorce. Now, in a cruel twist of fate, Zainab realized she was married to a man who had betrayed both his brother and her. "I didn't know," Zainab choked out between sobs, her voice raw with anguish. "I didn't know any of this." Ado struggled to find words, grappling with the complexity of the situation. "I didn't know you were his wife," he finally managed to say, his voice strained. "I didn't know." Silence hung heavy in the room as they both absorbed the enormity of the truth. Zainab felt a mix of emotions, betrayal, confusion, and a deep sense of regret. She had unknowingly entangled herself in a web of lies and deceit, her marriage and her affair now intertwined in a heartbreaking mess. "I'm pregnant," Zainab whispered, her voice barely audible amidst her tears. "And it's yours." Ado's face paled, his own shock mirroring Zainab's anguish. "Pregnant?" he asked quietly, his voice trembling. "You?" The story of Zainab serves as a powerful lesson on the consequences of secrecy, infidelity, and the importance of honesty in relationships. It reminds us that lies and hidden truths can create a tangled web that ultimately leads to heartbreak and betrayal. Communication and trust are the foundations of a strong relationship, and without them, even love can crumble. Thank you for watching my channel. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more intriguing and thought-provoking stories. Stay tuned for more fascinating videos coming your way. It was a Friday night at Lowell Apok, the luxury restaurant I had poured my heart and soul into building. The place buzzed with the clinking of crystal glasses, the murmur of expensive conversations, and the soft hum of live piano music drifting through the air. Servers glided across the polished marble floors like shadows, balancing trays laden with dishes that cost more than most people made in a week. The warm glow of chandeliers bathed the room in golden light, reflecting off the pristine glassware and the delicate floral arrangements adorning each table. And there I was, me, Zara Bennett, the owner of this establishment, wearing a black apron over my designer dress, serving tables because one of my wait staff had called in sick. I wasn't ashamed to roll up my sleeves when needed. After all, this restaurant was my dream. But tonight felt different. The energy in the room crackled with an undercurrent of tension as soon as he walked in, a man whose reputation preceded him. Idris Cole, billionaire tech mogul, strode through the entrance like he owned the place. His tailored navy suit screamed wealth, his Rolex gleamed under the chandeliers, and his smirk seemed permanently etched onto his face. He scanned the dining area with disdain before settling on me, holding out his menu without even looking at me properly. "This is your best table," he drawled, his voice dripping with condescension. "Even beggars would eat this food." The words hit me like a slap. My hands froze mid-motion as I adjusted his napkin. For a moment, I thought I'd misheard him. But no, the sneer curling his lips confirmed it. Every pair of eyes in the vicinity turned toward us, their gazes sharp and curious. Heat rushed to my cheeks, but not from embarrassment. No, this was something else entirely, anger simmering beneath the surface, threatening to boil over. Idris leaned back in his chair, oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. "You know," he continued, louder now, "clearly enjoying the attention. If you can't afford decent staff, maybe you should reconsider running such a pretentious operation." His laugh echoed across the room, punctuated by scattered chuckles from his entourage seated beside him. My jaw tightened, but I forced myself to stay composed. This wasn't just about me. It was about every person who worked here, every late night I'd spent perfecting recipes, every sacrifice I had made to turn this dream into reality. I couldn't let him see how deeply his words cut. Not yet. Instead, I gave him a polite smile, though my knuckles whitened around the tray. "Would you care for some water while you decide on your orders, sir?" I asked, my tone smooth despite the fury bubbling within me. He waved me off dismissively, already engrossed in mocking another server nearby. As I stepped away, I caught glimpses of pitying looks from my team and judgmental stares from other patrons. Some whispered behind their menus. Others shook their heads. It stung, but only for a second, because deep down, I knew what came next would change everything. Tonight wasn't going to end with Idris Cole walking away unscathed. Oh no, tonight he was going to learn exactly who I am and why crossing me was the biggest mistake of his life. Let me take you back to earlier that day, long before Idris Cole sauntered into Lowell Epoch. It started like any other morning. Well, almost. The sun peeked through the blinds of my apartment, casting golden streaks across the hardwood floor. I woke up early, as usual, fueled by the kind of restless energy that comes with knowing you're responsible for something bigger than yourself. Today wasn't supposed to be special, just another day at the helm of the restaurant I'd built from scratch. But fate has a funny way of rewriting plans. By 8:00 a.m., I was already at the restaurant, reviewing inventory lists and finalizing the prep schedule with Chefy Z. We were preparing for a busy weekend, and every detail mattered. The kitchen smelled of fresh herbs and simmering sauces, a comforting reminder of why I fell in love with this industry in the first place. Sunlight streamed through the tall windows, lining the back wall of the kitchen, casting soft shadows on the stainless steel countertops as the staff bustled around, each person a cog in the well-oiled machine I'd spent years perfecting. My phone buzzed incessantly, emails from suppliers, texts from staff, reservation confirmations piling up. Yet amidst the chaos, there was a rhythm, a quiet satisfaction in seeing everything come together. But then came the call that changed everything. One of my servers, Lamy, phoned in sick. She sounded miserable, her voice hoarse and strained. "Zara, I'm so sorry," she rasped. "I'll make it up to you. I promise." Normally, I'd have shrugged it off. These things happen. But today we were short-staffed as it was. Every server counted. So without hesitation, I told her to rest and assured her I'd cover her shift. After all, I'd waited tables myself during the early days of opening the restaurant. How hard could it be? What I didn't anticipate was how much the universe seemed determined to test me. By noon, disaster struck again. Our sous chef accidentally burned his hand while pulling a tray out of the oven. He was rushed to urgent care, leaving us short-handed in the kitchen too. Chef Ease shot me a look that said, "We'll manage," but I could see the stress lines forming around his eyes. And then, just as dinner service approached, the power flickered, not enough to shut us down, but enough to send everyone into a panic. The soft jazz playing through the overhead speakers stuttered, lights dimmed for a breathless moment, and the air conditioning hiccuped before humming back to life. That's when I realized tonight wasn't going to be easy. Still, I rolled up my sleeves, tied on an apron, and stepped into the fray. If anyone noticed their boss doubling as a waitress, they didn't say a word. Everyone was too busy scrambling to keep the ship afloat. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd worked tirelessly to build a business where I could step back and focus on strategy, yet here I was, juggling plates and refilling water glasses like I had years ago. And then Idris Cole walked in. In hindsight, maybe I should have seen it coming. Wealthy clients often visited La Wella Poke, drawn by its reputation for excellence, but none of them carried themselves quite like Idris. From the moment he entered, he radiated entitlement, his presence commanding attention whether he wanted it or not. When he made that crack about beggars and our food, part of me wanted to snap right then and there to reveal who I really was and watch the smugness drain from his face. But I didn't. Instead, I swallowed my pride, reminded myself of the bigger picture, and kept moving. Because sometimes revenge isn't about lashing out in the heat of the moment. Sometimes it's about patience, about waiting for the perfect opportunity to strike. And trust me, Idris Cole had no idea what was coming. As Idris settled deeper into his seat, his arrogance only grew thicker, suffocating the atmosphere around him. He gestured lazily to the waiter, approaching his table, barely sparing him a glance. "Bring me the most expensive bottle you have," he barked, his tone laced with derision, "though I doubt it'll be worth the price tag." His companions chuckled nervously, exchanging glances that spoke volumes about their discomfort. They were used to his antics, perhaps even encouraged them, but tonight something felt different. Maybe it was the weight of his words hanging heavy in the air, or perhaps it was the collective unease rippling through the room. I moved quietly between tables, my movements deliberate yet unobtrusive, ensuring each guest felt attended to without drawing undue attention to myself. But every time I passed Idris's table, his voice carried over the gentle hum of conversation, slicing through the ambience like a knife. Honestly, he scoffed to his entourage, loud enough for nearby diners to hear. "This place is trying way too hard to impress people who don't belong here." His gaze swept dismissively over the room. lingering momentarily on me, as if daring me to react. Each insult landed like a punch to the gut, but I refused to let him see the cracks forming beneath my calm exterior. Instead, I focused on the warmth emanating from the other patrons, those who exchanged sympathetic smiles with me. Those who exchanged sympathetic smiles with me, their eyes soft with understanding. There was Mrs. Thompson, a regular who always ordered the lavender creme brulee, nodding subtly in solidarity, and Mr. Patel, who frequented the restaurant weekly, offering a small, encouraging smile as I refilled his glass. Their silent support bolstered my resolve, reminding me that this wasn't just my battle. It was theirs too, yet amidst the sea of empathetic faces, there were also those who recoiled, visibly uncomfortable with the spectacle unfolding before them. A young couple at a nearby table shifted awkwardly in their seats, clearly torn between enjoying their meal and confronting the growing tension. Others whispered behind raised menus, their expressions a mix of disapproval and reluctant fascination. The room had transformed into a stage, and Idris, unknowingly, was the villain of the piece. Every snide comment he made reverberated through the restaurant, amplifying the divide between those who stood with me and those who cowered under his shadow. But with each barb, my determination hardened. I wasn't just fighting for myself anymore. I was fighting for every person who believed in the vision I had created, for every employee who worked tirelessly to bring that vision to life. And as Idris continued his tirade, oblivious to the storm brewing within me, I knew the moment of reckoning was drawing near. It happened faster than I expected. Idris had been sipping his wine. Yes, the outrageously expensive bottle he demanded when he leaned back in his chair, surveying the room with that same insufferable smirk. "You know," he announced loudly, swirling the glass like he was auditioning for a luxury commercial. "Places like this thrive on fooling people into thinking mediocrity is sophistication." His laughter rang out, sharp and grating, cutting through the hushed murmurs of the dining room. That's when I decided it was time. I approached his table, my steps steady and deliberate, the tray in my hands perfectly balanced, despite the storm raging inside me. "Is everything to your liking, Mr. Cole?" I asked, my voice calm but carrying an edge that silenced the entire room. Conversations halted mid-sentence. Forks paused halfway to mouths, and all eyes turned toward us. Even Idris looked momentarily taken aback by the sudden shift in energy. "Actually," I continued, setting the tray down with a soft clink, "there's something I'd like to share with you." I reached into the pocket of my apron and pulled out a small leather-bound notebook, the same one I used to jot down daily operations, supplier notes, and staff schedules. The edges were slightly worn, a testament to years of meticulous record keeping. Flipping it open, I slid it across the table toward him. "This is my restaurant," I said, my tone firm and unwavering, "and these are the financial records proving it." His smirk faltered, replaced by confusion. "What are you talking about?" he snapped, though his voice lacked its earlier bravado. "I'm Zara Bennett," I replied, letting the name hang in the air like a challenge, "owner of Lowell Poke. You've spent the last 20 minutes insulting not just me but every single person working here tonight, including yourself apparently, since you're dining in what you seem to think is a mediocre establishment." The room erupted into gasps and murmurs. Idris's face flushed red, his jaw tightening as he struggled to process the situation. The flickering candlelight on the table cast sharp shadows across his features, highlighting the cracks in his once impenetrable composure. This, this is ridiculous, he stammered, glancing around for support from his entourage. But they avoided his gaze, shifting uncomfortably in their seats. Oh, it gets better, I said, leaning slightly forward, my voice dropping to a level that demanded absolute attention. You see, Mr. Cole, I believe in treating people with respect, even those who might not deserve it. So, instead of throwing you out right now, which I could easily do, I'm going to offer you a choice. You can either apologize sincerely to everyone here and leave quietly, or I pause, letting the tension stretch taut like a bowstring, or I'll personally ensure that your little outburst becomes headline news tomorrow morning. Trust me, billionaires don't fare well in public opinion polls when they're caught mocking hardworking individuals. For a moment, the only sound was the faint ticking of the grandfather clock in the corner. Even the pianist had paused, hands hovering uncertainly above the keys. Then Idris stood abruptly, knocking over his chair in his haste. Fine, he muttered, his voice low and venomous. I apologize. He glanced around the room, his apology forced but audible to everyone. Satisfied, I nod curtly. Good. Now please enjoy the rest of your evening elsewhere. As he stormed out, his entourage trailing behind him like chastised puppies, the room erupted into applause. Patrons rose to their feet, cheering and whistling, while my staff gathered around me, their faces glowing with pride. In that moment, I realized this wasn't just about putting Idris in his place. It was about standing up for something greater than myself, and it felt incredible. The aftermath of Idris Cole's humiliation spread like wildfire. Within hours, whispers turned into stories, and stories morphed into legends. Social media lit up with posts from patrons who had witnessed the showdown firsthand, tagging Lowell, Apok, and sharing videos of the climactic moment. Hashtags like respect your server and billionaires behaving badly trended overnight, catapulting my restaurant and me into the spotlight. Journalists clamored for interviews, bloggers dissected every detail, and local news anchors hailed me as a hero for standing up to elitism. But beyond the viral fame and media frenzy, the real impact unfolded in quieter, more profound ways. The following week, I received dozens of letters and emails from strangers, wait staff, chefs, bartenders, and hospitality workers across the country who thanked me for giving them hope. One message stood out. A young waitress wrote about how she'd been bullied by a customer earlier that year and felt powerless to respond. Seeing you stand up to someone like Idris Cole made me realize I deserve respect too, she wrote. Thank you for showing me that strength isn't about yelling louder. It's about doing what's right, even when it's hard. Even when it's hard. Inside the restaurant, the transformation was equally palpable. My team walked taller, their confidence buoyed by the knowledge that they were valued and protected. During our next staff meeting, Lamy, the server whose absence had thrust me into waitressing duty, teared up as she recounted how proud she was to work somewhere that prioritized dignity over profit. You didn't just defend us, she said, her voice trembling. You reminded us why we chose this job in the first place, to create joy, not endure abuse. Even the regular patrons noticed the shift. Mrs. Thompson, ever the observant diner, remarked during her next visit, there's a new energy here. It's like the whole place breathes easier now. She wasn't wrong. The atmosphere at Lowell Epoch had transformed, infused with a sense of unity and purpose that went far beyond exceptional cuisine or impeccable service. People weren't just coming for the food, they were coming for the story, for the promise of being part of something meaningful. For me, the experience became a turning point. It wasn't just about vindication, it was about validation. Standing up to Idris reinforced my belief in the importance of kindness, empathy, and integrity, not just as ideals, but as non negotiable principles. I began implementing changes at the restaurant, starting with mandatory training sessions on conflict resolution and workplace respect. I also introduced a guest code of conduct policy, making it clear that disrespect would not be tolerated under any circumstances. To my surprise, these measures didn't deter customers. They attracted even more. Word of mouth praise brought in new faces, eager to support a business rooted in values rather than vanity. And then there was Idris himself. Though he vanished from public view after the incident, rumors swirled about his plummeting reputation among peers and investors. A few weeks later, I received an envelope containing a handwritten note in neat, precise handwriting. It read, "You were right. Respect matters. Thank you for teaching me that lesson. No signature, but I didn't need one." Whether genuine or coerced by PR advisors, the acknowledgement meant something. Redemption, I realized, isn't always loud or dramatic. It's often found in small, quiet moments of accountability. Looking back, I understood that the confrontation wasn't just about me versus Idris. It was about choosing courage over complacency, humanity over hierarchy. It reminded me why I started this journey in the first place, to build a space where everyone, from the dishwasher to the diner, felt seen, heard, and valued. And in doing so, I discovered that true success isn't measured in accolades or profits. It's measured in the lives you touch along the way. Reflecting on that unforgettable night, I realized how profoundly it reshaped not just my perspective, but also the very essence of Lowell Pope. Each memory serves as a poignant reminder of the delicate balance between power and humility, wealth and humanity. That evening, amidst the glittering chandeliers and the murmurs of astonished diners, I learned that true strength lies not in domination, but in the quiet, steadfast commitment to uphold dignity for oneself and for others. Idris Cole's mockery was a mirror reflecting societal flaws, exposing the stark disparity between privilege and empathy. It underscored a truth I hold dear. Respect is not a privilege to be earned, but a fundamental right inherent to every individual, regardless of their station in life. The soft hum of the restaurant, punctuated by the clink of glasses and murmured conversations, seemed almost ironic in the wake of such a harsh lesson. This ordeal illuminated the critical role of kindness in leadership. Managing Laurel Poke is no longer merely about curating exquisite dining experiences. It's about fostering an environment where every team member feels empowered and respected. Implementing policies that champion respect and fairness has cultivated a culture of mutual appreciation and collaboration. These changes resonate deeply with our patrons, who increasingly choose us not just for our culinary excellence, but for our ethos. This alignment of values enhances the dining experience, transforming meals into meaningful interactions imbued with warmth and authenticity. The restaurant, once merely a symbol of ambition, now stands as a beacon of inclusivity and mutual respect. Moreover, The incident with Idris taught me invaluable lessons about personal growth and resilience. Facing adversity head on, especially when it challenges one's identity and values, demands courage and conviction. It's about embracing vulnerability, allowing oneself to feel the